Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words and also Merry DEPTHSMAS. Yes, it's the 25th of December, so why not play a very festive and very spicy Depths deck for you. Today we are playing Mono White Depths. This is a deck I have played before, but it was last year or maybe even the year before I played it. The aim of the game here is we can do the Dark Depths plus Thespian stage combo, but mainly what we're trying to do is combo it with Solemnity. Solemnity says players can't get counters, counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. So with this in play, if we play the Dark Depths, it just becomes a 20/20 immediately, and that is pretty spicy. There are some other things you can do with Solemnity, for example, Phyrexian Unlife. This means that we don't lose the game for having 0 less life, and if we have 0 less life, we get damage dealt to us in poison counters, but we can't get poison counters because of Solemnity. This means that we can't take any more damage the rest of the game. That is a nice place to be. There is another piece of interaction with the Solemnity as well, Urza's Saga. So what happens here is we play the Urza Saga, we tick it up to 2, then we play our Solemnity, and we're just locked in with an Urza Saga factory, and we can just keep pumping out guys until we can overwhelm our opponent with them. In terms of Urza Saga, our package is relatively deep actually. We've got Ghost Vacuum, Shadowspear, Lavaspur Boots, Pithing Needle, and 2 Expedition maps. So this is allowing us to trim a little bit on the Dark Depths so we can get the Expedition map. But the Expedition map is also something we can hit off of one of the main cards that we're trying to string all this together with, and that is United Battlefront. This is collected company for non-land, non-creatures. So we look at the top 7, we get 2 non-land permanents with non-land, non-creature permanents with mana value 3 or less, and we put them into play. So that can assemble our Phyrexian Unlife combo. It can go and get Solemnity plus Expedition map to enable our Dark Depths combo. It can just get some nice protection pieces and removal. So we've got On Thin Ice for creatures. Seam Rip is quite flexible. Oblivion Ring is like the classic deal with stuff. Now, there are other versions of Oblivion Ring style effects like Banishing Light, and there's some other ones that have flash and stuff. But in terms of the ones that cost 2 and a white, which means it's going to be easier to cast if we have some of our colourless lands, I think Oblivion Ring is still my personal pick, not because it's a classic that I love from back in the day, which it is, but because of the way it's worded, it means if you're trying to take out a let's say, a Dark Depths token, so your opponent's managed to get Marit Lage up and running, you play the Oblivion Ring. There's not a window for them to besage you it and stop you taking their token. Whereas if you have something like Banishing Light, they can blow it up in response to targeting and then it never gets taken away. So I do just like the way this works a little bit better. Rune Halo is a nice little fun one. We name a card, we have protection from it. This can really jam up some decks, and it can also do nothing against other decks, so it's going to be one that's going to be in and out of our deck a little bit, but this is one I just love a great deal. Way back in the day, I used to play this in Standard with mana barbs and really annoy people, but that's a different story. We've got Rest in Peace in here, we've got some Ghostly Prisons for the people that are trying to go wide and attack us, and I think the only thing worth mentioning here is obviously we're a Serra Sanctum deck, so we're going to end up with a lot of mana, and March of the Canonized is how we're going to use that mana. X white, when it enters, create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. This is how we can go wide and get a bunch of guys. It also produces tokens so that we don't get stuck by a Shoulder's Edict style effect on our Marit Lage token. But then it has another piece of text which is actually going to be relevant here. At the beginning of your upkeep, if your devotion to white and black is 7 or greater, create a 5/3 white and black vampire creature token with flying. So this is just going to be like Bitter Blossom but demons every turn in our deck for the most part. So even if we find this off of the United Battlefront, it's still going to be reasonable to take some of the time. And this also just gives us a big mana dump when we've got a bunch of stuff to do with like our mana, you know, with the Serra Sanctum. But what if we run out of sagas, we're not doing anything there, we can then just funnel all this mana into making a bunch of guys that pad our life total. That's the main deck. The sideboard is just a bunch of white cards. We've got Deafening Silence. This is going to be essential for some of the combo decks which you might struggle against. We've got a bunch of Stony Silence also for that sort of matchup. A couple more Rest in Peace. Now this isn't the best graveyard hate that we can have. Oops for Spells is probably just going to do a number on us unless we can get the Deafening Silence down on turn 1. But, you know, sometimes you just got to say, this sort of 3 to 4% deck in the meta, I don't want to play against it. If it happens, we're going to have a bad time. We've got a little bit more removal and Ossification. A couple of Greater Auramancy for when our opponent's trying to board in like a bunch more removal. We can just give our stuff Shroud. More Ghostly Prisons when we want more of that effect. And then one spicy one that you might not be aware of. Spark Rupture. It's 3 mana enchantment. When it enters, draw a card. Each Planeswalker with 1 or more loyalty counters on it loses all abilities and is a creature with power and toughness. Each equals the number of loyalty counters on it. So against the decks that are playing Tamiyo and Kaito, we can bring this in and then it's just not going to work anymore. It can also do some nice work into the the Khan Ugin style decks and just shut those down. So there is some nice stuff going on with this card. Now the problem with the Ugin is when they cast the Ugin, it's still going to blow up a thing. So we need to let the Ugin resolve and then play this, which is not ideal. But it's still going to be good to stop the Khan from just getting all the things it needs. And that is the pile of spice we're playing today. I've played this a few times on the channel over the years. I think I have a weird inkling that we went positive once. So let's see if we can get back to that stage, but maybe I'm just remembering wrong. The deck is obviously a little bit janky, but it can really smash up certain strategies. Like aggro strategy is going to have a real tough time into what we're doing here. Okay, remember to like and subscribe. And if you're looking for stuff to watch over the Christmas break, why not become a YouTube member for just $1 a month on my channel? You get to watch all my content early, and that is going to be a nice way to spend your Boxing Day and subsequent Christmas break. All right, let's get stuck in with some festive DEPTHSMAS action. Have you got magic cards you don't want taking up space in your home, or do you just need some extra spending money? Well, my lovely sponsors, 3for1 Trading, are buying all collections, big and small. They are one of Europe's biggest traders and have a transparent process to sell them cards and make sure you're getting a good deal. Click the link in the description of this video to get an offer on your cards today. Let's have a look at our first opener. It's kind of interesting. We've got removal, we've got an engine card. We do need another mana source, but we are quite a mana-rich deck. So I think we're going to keep this. We can also use the Expedition map to go and grab our next land drop if the Urza Saga is just going to be dying. We can get Thoughtseize, and we're going to see quite the pile. They are going to see the pile of stuff in our hand. What do they take here? Maybe the Expedition map? Could just be a removal spell. This is one of the most cost-effective and just efficiently good cards in our deck. So I can certainly see taking that if they've got creatures they want to resolve and attack us with. It's unlikely that they're trying to do some sort of go-wide strategy, so I don't think the Ghostly Prison is going to be the take. Alright, they just took the Expedition map, and that's pretty reasonable. We drew another land. I'm not unhappy about that. We can now just do some Urza Saga gaming for a couple of turns and work something out after that. We can just go and get another Urza Saga with an Expedition map if we want to. Bloodstained Mire. Is this just their black fetch land, or is it indicative of something a bit more like a combo deck? Are we going to see a Brainstorm here? I don't like this at all. I think you want to crack the fetch land before you play the Tamiyo, because if we, let's say, draw Swords to Plowshares, now they don't know we're not running it, but if we were running Swords to Plowshares, they would have lost their window to Brainstorm there. Not a big fan of this happening to us. But, you know, sometimes you're going to play a format with a card that just shouldn't be legal, and it's going to be awkward and beat us when we're trying to do our little fun things. But the Urza Saga can tick its way through to Pithing Needle and shut this down. We're going to have to get on that relatively sharpish, though. Here is our Saga. I suspect we're just going to get wastelanded and be sad. There's a possibility that we can get enough of our nonsense down and they maybe only have 2 borrowers and they just can't plow through multiple copies of Phyrexian Unlife and Solemnity. Shadowspear is actually kind of good because it's going to allow us to attack with our constructs and get through little blockers if they have something like a Baleful Strix. So next time this goes up to 6, and we make a guy. Oh, they're Force of Willingness. So next time this goes up to 6, we make a guy on our next turn. Then it goes up to 8, we attack with 2 guys. If we draw a land, that is. So we should be able to keep this under wraps a little bit. We're going to be reaching for Spark Rupture here. Not a big fan of the old Tamiyo stinking up the place here. We don't have a choice. Because we're under this Tamiyo pressure, we have to do Urza Saga stuff and hope that we can get through this Tamiyo. If we find a land, we can remove this, or we can give our guy haste with the Lavaspur Boots. So we have several options that can allow us to attack into this Tamiyo next turn, but they all require us to have another land. We don't have a mana source we can get off of this. We have the Pithing Needle actually, don't we? Which is probably going to be our game plan here. I think we still end up attacking the Tamiyo. We get a clue? No, they're not. I guess it depends if they think we have the Pithing Needle or not. Now they're probably just going to have their one-off Brazen Borrower or whatever. Let's get Saga in. An Orcish Bowmasters. It's going to ping down our construct. So the only real recourse we have now is to get the Pithing Needle. But if they don't have their like borrower here, we're actually in an okay-ish spot. The Tamiyo is going to be annoying, but we're going to get through it. Pithing Needle, name Tamiyo, Seasoned Scholar. Also, Solemnity in our deck does some pretty funny things with Orc Army tokens. They never get to have an Orc Army because once the Solemnity is in play, it's a 0/0 that they put a counter on, but they won't be able to get a counter. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop Planeswalkers, which is sad. We're going to see maybe drawing the card off of the Tamiyo in an attempt to find the land or the borrower, whichever one they don't have. Yep, seems like we're doing that sort of thing. Now, do you have anything, opponent? The land, you're going to borrow me, and okay, they don't have borrowers, so they're not going to draw half their deck. That is good news. What are we doing with our hand here? We're going to play this on thin ice and try and get rid of the Tamiyo so that they're not gaining additional cards moving forward. I have to think about what sort of stuff they might have in their deck, at this, in their hand. It's probably going to be like Daze. We haven't seen a Daze yet. We haven't given them a target for it either. Undercity Sewers. The second Undercity Sewers. That suggests our opponent is doing reanimation stuff. That is good to know about. So playing this on Archon of Cruelty could be actually quite big. Alright, they're dazing that. So they did have a Daze in hand. We're going to on thin ice. We're going to deal with this Tamiyo here. And then I'm going to attack their Tamiyo just in case they draw a Brazen Borrower. I'm okay trading this off for these two guys. I just want to make sure that Brazen Borrower doesn't give them the win, basically. Okay, so we're trading. The board is empty. We've got a grip full of cards that we can't quite utilize yet. Brainstorm is a good way to find what they're looking for. I don't know how many borrowers they can fit in these modern builds where they have to have more monsters and stuff in. But I'm pretty sure they're on Reanimate when we saw the second Undercity Sewers. Like, it's certainly possible a tempo deck could play the other Undercity Sewers. It just feels more like a Reanimator style thing to do. This Expedition map is not very crackable. I'm just going to play this and name Archon of Cruelty. Because the triggers on Archon of Cruelty do target, which is why you can't use it when somebody one rings. If we can just draw one of our lands, we'll be in an okay spot here. If we draw Serra Sanctum, it's loads of mana. Is this going to be Murktide? Murktide can do some real work into us over the course of a couple of turns. An Oblivion Ring. I guess we are just missing on land drops here. We've got 26 land. 2 of them don't tap for mana, but that's still 24 lands. And we're just struggling to get our third mana source. Now, we did have an Urza Saga as one of our lands. But statistically, we're a quarter of the way through our deck. We should have seen a lot more land by now. Thespian Stage. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. Do I think it's a Daze? Maybe, but we're just going to play this Oblivion Ring. Goodbye, Murktide Regent. And then next turn, we can just go and get our Dark Depths and just work towards that. I don't know how many wastelands our opponent can squeeze in their list either. And there's a Saga. Deploy that one. This just gives us some flexibility moving forwards because we're going to get this. Because we can't get this and make it in the same turn cycle in terms of the mana it costs to get the Expedition map going. But we can crack it now. I'm not going to play this March of the Canonized out. 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's not quite ready to give us all the tokens, to give us all the demons in the world. Another Murktide Regent. You got it. 2 cards in hand. It's only a 4/4 this one. Just go and get our little Dark Depths. I could just go and get the Serra Sanctum. How much is it tapping for? 1, 2, 3, 4. Because it includes Urza Saga. Is that better than getting a 2020? Probably not. I think we do this around a wasteland. I think I'm going to seam rip the Tamiyo just so they can't draw half their deck if they draw a Brazen Borrower. Obviously, they're probably going to want to Brazen Borrow this, but they might just Brazen Borrow the thing, draw half their deck, block for a turn, and then be okay. Even if they get rid of this Marit Lage, we're still in a reasonable position here because we have a bunch of resources in hand that we can deploy. The March of the Canonized is going to start making demons soon as well. So I think this turn we're probably getting Serra's Sanctum off of an Expedition map. Oh no, we've used both Expedition maps now. I'm glad we have 2, but I could honestly see having 3. But alright, we got the first game. Not bad. Okay. So our opponent's pivot plan is also very poor into Rest in Peace because it's Barrogoyfs and Bowmasters and stuff. What do we want here? This isn't really a matchup where we are worried about them going wide. So Ghostly Prison, probably not at its strongest, but we do want these Rest in Pieces, obviously. The Rune Halo seems fine. I like the Ghost Vacuum, the Pithing Needle, this all seems fine. So this is a pretty easy split. I think we definitely want this Ossification in though. Maybe we just take out one of the Marches. We can get to winning the game at some point, don't you worry. The Solemnity will also make their Murktide Regents much worse, which is fun. Do I want the Spark Rupture? We've only seen Tamiyo. Do we need to worry about Kaito? Maybe that's part of their pivot. It's possible. How useful is the Seam Rip? It kills the backside of Tamiyo, it kills the front side of Tamiyo, it kills Bowmasters and Doughty Voidwalker. That all seems fine to me. I want this Spark Rupture. I'm not sure what it comes in for. I don't know if I want to trim any more of these March of the Canonized. Maybe it is just a Runed Halo. Runed Halo is more of a fun of sort of card. I don't think we want the Auramancy here. They're only going to be bouncing stuff. We have a removal spell. We have big mana. I think this is okay. It's not very exciting. And we do run the risk of getting days. But I imagine our opponent's going to be playing a slower game post-board. No 1-drop. A Seam Rip. Another piece of removal that also ends up being mana for us in the form of Serra Sanctum. Can't be upset with that. Bloodstone Mire being cracked. And it's an Undercity Sewers. They liked it. Is it going to be a Tamiyo? No, it's not. A Dark Depths, you say? We're pretty close to doing the thing. Do I want to just play out this March of the Canonized so that we can get the mana guaranteed off of this Sanctum? I don't think so. Then we're just going to pass it over. Going to try and Seam Rip and Ossification our way through this game. We're going to see a Bowmasters at end step, just a Brainstorm with a Shuffle. That's one fewer Brainstorm that can flip a Tamiyo, which is good for us. Yeah, I don't think we're trying to charge up the Sanctum by just playing this sort of stuff out. We can just play out our planes and go that way with it. We play Solemnity next turn. It probably gets dazed if we play the Solemnity. Do we mind if it gets dazed? I guess it depends what we draw and what situation we're in. We might have to just deploy some interaction. Wasteland. That's something we'll have to play around. But they might want to go after the Sanctum rather than our depths here. Okay, it's a Baragoyf. Just a little Baragoyf to begin with. So I think this means we are playing out the Ossification around a daze. Is it worth a Force of Will to you? I think our opponent's definitely going to have them in this matchup. Yeah, okay, another Brainstorm is gone. It pumps this guy a little bit. We need to find a spot where this Wasteland is tapped before we can play a 2020. Yep, the Baragoyf gets to do its thing. A Brazen Borrower. Okay, so the plan is kind of off now. Understood. Seam Rip not being able to kill the Baragoyf is annoying. But when isn't Baragoyf annoying? Him to Turak. Okay, I don't mind losing Dark Depths. I would have liked to keep the March, though. That would have been a nice one. Our opponent's just reading that now, I believe. The pause was. Oblivion Ring. Are we playing around a daze? So we know our opponent's got a Brazen Borrower in hand. They can just bounce this. We can just replay it. They didn't pitch a daze. They pitched a Brainstorm. I think you would pitch a daze if you had one, maybe. So we could just play out this Solemnity and just get that up and running. Or I could play around the daze. Our opponent's on the play, so they're more likely to have dazes in their deck. Do I want to take another hit from Baragoyf is the question. I don't think I do. This is potentially going to be awkward. Don't do it to my opponent. Just let me Oblivion Ring you like it's whatever year it was that Lawman came out. I'm not going to play our land straight into this Wasteland. So they know they can bounce this, then we can just play it again. So it's kind of a weird one. They can bounce it in the end step and then get an attack in with the Baragoyf, and that's pretty reasonable. Petty Theft. This feels like the wrong time to bounce that unless you have a Thoughtseize. So I'm assuming our opponent has a Thoughtseize that's going to take the Oblivion Ring. Yep, there it is. Your opponent's always telling you what's in their hand. You just have to read it. Goodbye Oblivion Ring. You don't care about any of this stuff, opponent. Just take the Oblivion Ring, move on with your ridiculously overstatted creature. March of the Canonized. Is it time to get this in as just like a little roadblock for this guy? I think so. I will take 1 times roadblock, please. This also puts an enchantment into play for the sake of our Serra Sanctum. They've got 3 cards in hand. Could be anything. We get a 1/1. This gains us a life and stops the Baragoyf from connecting, which is the most important thing. And potentially gives us a little bit of boost of mana next turn if we can find some more interaction for this. I'll take the block while we can grab it. So we're going to go up to 18. Our opponent's going to go up to 22. A little bit awkward for us. But once we just get rid of the Baragoyf, we don't really care about the other stuff that much. We're getting Hymns again. They usually run 2 copies of Hymns. So I think our opponent is actually not on the tempo build if we're seeing Hymns. Alright, here is a Murktide. We could have stopped this from being that large, but alas, was not to be. Let's get Solemnity in. We can just assemble the combo. Do I want to play this Serra Sanctum and get rid of this wasteland that our opponent has? I think so. We've got another one in hand. This is going to make them think about what we have. They're going to be more inclined to wasteland it. That reduces the amount of mana they have, so they can't deploy a second Barragoyf, which is not really what we'd like to see. A Rest in Peace can be a little bit awkward because it will grow the Murktide while shrinking the Barragoyf. But we're taking a boatload of damage this turn. I think the chances are we just lose, but if we can, let's say, get the combo, maybe our opponent can't break out of it. Maybe they've only got the one borrower, and then that's just game. Maybe they've got 2 borrowers, and then that just buys us a bunch of time to try and find redundancy in our little pieces. Barragoyf dealing some damage. Finding, is that another Murktide? It is another Murktide. And they can play this because there's plenty of stuff in their graveyard, provided they have a mana source. No mana source, so their whole hand is full of interaction. Okay, that's a thing that we get to do, isn't it? 2020. Here we go. We might as well play the other Solemnity here. Just get that redundancy in there. I'm not going to play out the Serra Sanctum. Okay, can they remove my 2020 creature? If they can, then they probably win this turn. If they can't, then we get to keep playing for a little bit longer. We can't just swing out, though. We need to assemble. All right, they did have another borrower, and we are in the dirt. All right, let's have a look at the sideboard. I'm pretty happy with what we've done with the sideboard. I don't think we want the Ghostly Prisons here. Like, it was unfortunate. Like, we could have the Rune Halo and protect against the Barragoyf. We can't be dealt damage by it. They can't flip a bunch of cards. That is kind of interesting to me. But I think the Spark Rupture makes a lot more sense now that we've seen that they are a fairer deck. Where would I like to squeeze in this Ruined Halo is the question. I could cut another March. March is still kind of cool though. We could trim on Anne on a single Phyrexian Unlife. The combo is going to be very difficult for them to interact with though. They want to get rid of removal. We could touch some of this stuff now that we don't think that they're a reanimator deck. We can board out this Ghost Vacuum. We still have the Rest in Pieces, which are good against their Barragoyfs and Murktide, provided it comes down before the Murktide. So yeah, I think that makes sense here. And we just got a couple of Rune Halos. If we name like Murktide Regent and Barragoyf, that's going to really blunt their attack. Okay, we got removal. We got 2 removal spells. We've got an engine card. We're not going to get messed up on lands. Get down this expedition map so that the threat of more sagas is there, as well as the threat of things like Marit Lage. That could be good here. Thoughtseize. So we're going to lose probably the On Thin Ice, because it's the most cost-effective removal spell we have. But we have the ability to just crank out some boys. And if they wasteland us, we can just go and get another saga and replay that turn cycle again. Oh, Rest in Peace is real good here. I think it is worth casting. Alright, we're just in. No Barragoyfs, no Murktides. They're going to have to burn a Brazen Borrower on this, but that means less Brazen Borrowers for our combo and for our other combo, like the one that keeps us alive and the one that kills our opponent. We have seen Bowmasters. They might have something like the Voidwalker, just as a fair creature that can beat down. It was designed from some sort of Zendikar. Alright, so they're going to take our last removal spell, but now we're going to start cranking out the boys because they didn't play a Wasteland. Welcome to Saga Town. And they're not going to be small enough to be hit by a Orcish Bowmaster because we have the Expedition map already. So we're in a pretty good position, I would say. They didn't have the early pressure. Okay, they've got a Consign. It's a little bit rude, isn't it? Let's go an Expedition map for another Urza Saga. Play the Urza Saga and start that tick in for next turn. So they've traded for like half of a card, I guess. Is how that works out for them. There is a Tamiyo. Not in love with seeing that creature in play. If they brainstorm now, then they know that we have Pithing Needle in our deck because we showed it to them already. So Pithing Needle is going to come out next turn. Alternatively, can we kill? I don't think we can kill the Tamiyo. 1, 2. Big enough to kill. No, we don't get a creature off this one, do we? We get a creature off this one, and then we can equip it. It's going to be a 1, 2 power, 3 power guy. So yeah, we're just going to go get the Pithing Needle and not mess around. Let's float some mana off the one that's going away. Going to get this Pithing Needle. Tamiyo, Seasoned Scholar. They might have Engineered Explosives. Then we get to Tutor. What do we tutor here? No, sorry, that's the thing we tutored, isn't it? Sorry. I was thinking because we had an Expedition map in hand, my brain went a bit soft. Let's make this now with the mana we have floating. Actually, let's not do that. Let's play the expedition map that we drew. Force of Will on an expedition map. We're still going to be cranking out the boys. You don't get to use your Planeswalker. You've got one card in hand. They've had to make some pretty horrible exchanges in this game, and we are quite far ahead. Barragoyf does literal nothing. Good old rest in peace. And we also have our combo in hand. Well, I think we're just getting Lavaspur Boots this turn. We're probably going to just kill the Tamiyo, just get it gone anyway. Okay, we're not going to get Lavaspur Boots, I guess. I will still attack this Tamiyo, though. I think it's just good fundamentals to make sure they don't have the Planeswalker. Now we can just deploy Solemnity and Phyrexian Unlife. I think the Solemnity is the bigger prize because it combos with more of our cards. So we play this one out first if they have counter magic. I don't agree with flipping the Tamiyo when they did. We already had the Urza Saga ticking up. I think you just want to use a Tamiyo to generate clues, and that ends up being much better. That's my take on it anyway. And then we play for our opponents. Good stuff. I'm just going to split attacks here. One of them, make sure the Tamiyo is just gone. Just keep the material out of play. And then we're going to drop this Phyrexian Unlife. It's not as important as Solemnity because this triggers our Marit Lage. We're going to see a Daze, sure. But we have a 2-turn clock in play now. We can remove little creatures. Their big creatures don't do anything. Rest in peace, his opponent. Attack with both creatures. We're going to play a redundant Rest in Peace just to make sure no spooky monsters can come down. What year is it where we're donking on like a tempo player because we have Rest in Peace? It reminds me of like playing Magic a decade or so ago. Alright, we got the game, and that means we are currently undefeated with mono white depths. Undefeated, I tell you. Alright, let's go to round 2. This opener feels a little bit sketchy. Now, we do have the combo, and we do have Urza Saga. I think that is good stuff to be getting on with, and we're going to try it. But I would prefer to have one of these Serra Sanctum be a removal spell. We have a game plan. Just against the solo island, Solemnity, so we can lock in with our Urza Saga if we really want to. Understood. Let's play an expedition map. If our opponent is playing Show and Tell, then this could be an awkward one because we're not going to beat Show and Tell. We need to play Nevermore if we want to do that. Oh, we're playing Blue Cloud Post. How do we beat Blue Cloud Post? They're probably alright at removing a Marit Lage. Let's get the Saga in. This is an enchantment for the purposes of Serra's Sanctum, which could come in useful next turn to give us a land that taps for more mana if we decide to play out the Solemnity first. I think we're probably just on the Urza Saga life here, because they're going to have some counter magic. If we can just beat them down before they get set up. Like, they missed on land. So they don't have land drops, but they probably have a bunch of counter magic. So the correct way to play this is just crank out the boys and get stuck in. I could have played out Serra's Sanctum that turn, but I don't think there's any necessary need to do that. They found their third land, so we're probably going to see a stock up this turn. They're not attacking, which makes sense. They're also not stocking up. What are they holding up for? Seam ripping something like this is a little bit scary, because if they bounce the seam rip, they get their guy back. Is this going to be Tishana's Tidebinder? Haven't been seeing that in lists that much lately, but it's still in there. One Shitong. Sure, you can have a little guy and draw a card. That's fine by me. What do I want here? Shadowspear is probably pretty good. I would have liked the Lavaspur Boots. We didn't get to have that one, unfortunately. Yeah, you can draw your card off your guy. I'm going to deploy this Seam Rip and take out this One Shitong. We're getting a Force of Will. Are they going to trade their One Shitong for my Construct token? Probably. They might not. Is holding the expedition map in check. It does reduce our power a lot if they put both of these under the bus, and we don't have to worry about the next turn. So we're just going to take the 4. Next turn, we can play out this other artifact. Not actually getting much mana out of our Sanctums right now, but that will change. Stock up. So if we play Solemnity, they can't put more counters on One Shitong. So many weird little fringe things where Solemnity actually becomes really interesting. Playing a Nexus, and that stock up is gone now. This has got Vigilance, so they just get to get in. I do like this particular art for this one. I don't like the see-through text box. That's one thing I really hate with modern Magic design. I like my text box to be like a scroll or something that I can't see through. But I digress. let's go for a Lavaspur Boots. Let's go for a Thespian stage. We can equip the Lavaspur Boots here. And we can equip the Shadowspear as well to the one that they can't target with the Dismember now. I'm going to Dismember the other one. This is why we targeted it here. So we've got a 6/5 with Trample. That's going to be good enough to get through One Shitong. We're pretty close to threatening Marit Lage combo as well, which will be hasty when we get there. I can probably intuit that we have the... I guess we can just stick a 20/20 into play now with haste. Right, 1, 2, 3 mana for... That gets us Solemnity. 2 mana. No, we don't have quite enough. We're getting there, though. Kozilek's Command. Are you going to pay the 1 and exile my guy? They are indeed. Is there a way that we can make Marit Lage this turn? I guess if we draw Dark Depths, they just lose. No, we don't have enough mana to equip everything. So we don't lose quite yet. Oblivion Ring isn't the one. Let's get Solemnity going. And then we can see which land we want to play. Force of Will. I'll play this Snow-Covered Plains. So we can go and get this, and the next turn we have 1, 2, 3 mana. That gets us our Marit Lage. We give it Trample. No, we give it Haste. We can't give it Trample. The One Ring. Solemnity also pretty good against the One Ring, as it turns out. We can Oblivion Ring this One Ring. Do I want to fetch here and give them some One Shitong food? I think I do, as annoying as that is. Enjoy your One Shitong nonsense. I will take a Dark Depths, please. Yep, your guy can get slightly bigger. The drawing of the card is the actual thing that matters there. Snow-Covered Plains. Then we're casting the Oblivion Ring. Get rid of this. One ring. All the rings. And now I can pick out a Serra Sanctum, which could be worth more mana later on. This could come back to bite me if they remove this at a weird timing. And maybe try and force our hand on when we use the Sanctum. Okay, they have the One Ring. Because of course they do. They always have another one. So I can make the Thespian stage into a copy of the Cloud Post and it'll be worth loads of mana, but what is that doing for us right now? Not actually a lot because this needs to turn into something else anyway. I've got 3 cards in hand. They're tapping out for something big. 6 mana. Thundertrap Trainer kicked. Why is our opponent tapping out for that? Oh, because they have One Ring protection. I had a minute where it's like, are you not just dead here, opponent? But no, that's not how that works because they have one ring protection. Don't think the Thespian stage is copying the Cloud Post. That gives our opponent more mana if we don't use this for something else. Solemnity. I do like a bit of Solemnity action here. Let's get that going. No more counters on the One Ring for you. No more counters on One Shitong. It's weird how our deck is lining up like in an interesting back and forth fashion with what our opponent's putting down. If I play this Dark Depths, it immediately makes a guy. If I make a guy immediately, we can equip it, but then they get to kill it at sorcery speed. I don't really want to do that. Just make sure this doesn't say damage can't be prevented. No, it's hexproof and indestructible. We don't care about those. Giving the One Ring, making it lose its indestructibility. Excuse me, its indestructibility is quite interesting. Yeah, you draw some more cards, but you don't. They draw a card for each counter on it, right? Yeah, so they still get to draw a card. They can't put any more counters on it. It's interesting how that works out. It's got like a Howling Mine that burns them for one. So basically you've just got Phyrexian Arena, right? Another copy of the One Ring. This is not going to work very well under Solemnity. But this is going to stop them dying. Baragoyf, sure. Do they have what they need in hand to kill our guy? They have colorless. So it certainly feels like they might be able to interact with us. Well, we have one option available to us, so we're going to do it. Maybe they don't have it. Let's equip. You got the Kozilek's Command here. There's a long pause. Let's give it Trample and Haste. Are they just waiting to the last minute to mess us up? Or have they made a mistake and we get to win the game? Oh, they have One Ring protection, don't they? Whoops. What am I doing? Should have held that back on blocks. Oh no, that was a colossal mistake. Because the One Ring didn't have any counters on, my brain just was like, oh, the One Ring's off, but they still got the protection. If we just leave this back to block, they probably had the Kozilek's Command. But still, that was awful. That was a real mistake there. What would I like to have access to here? Oh, that's a very tilting mistake that I'm going to have to live with. How useful is the Stony Silence? It's just for the one ring, and we already have that cover with Solemnity, so I'm not bothered by that. How do I feel? Let's get Spark Rupture in, because they probably have Karn, and Ugin. Obviously, Ugin is a bit awkward into this. What are we doing? March of the Canonized can make a bunch of guys. This can deal with some of their scarier things. I don't think we're just playing around the Barragoyf. I don't think we care that much about it. The Deafening Silence is okay to stop some double spelling, but I don't think it's where you want to be. So we've got two things we're bringing in, and I don't think this is a Ghostly Prison matchup, so that looks relatively clean. I wonder how that game goes if we don't make that attack. I think we still die, because we have to have it back on blocks. This vacuum can pick away at their graveyard a little bit, keep some stuff in check. Spark Rupture is a cantrip that is reasonable here. Pithing Needle is not very reasonable. We need something that's a bit more engine-y. Like an Urza Saga, for example. I will take that. Do we need the Seam Rip? I don't think we do. Our opponent's whole jam is playing big stuff. That can deal with a Tamiyo, though. But On Thin Ice can potentially deal with a Tamiyo as well. And our mana's kind of locked in after the next couple of turns anyway. If they have a Tamiyo, I'd like to see it now so we can interact with it. Okay. An Ancient Tomb. You got it, boss. Another On Thin Ice. We're certainly not losing to the Barragoyf plan. Let's just crank out the boys. They might have Consigned Memories to stop this. Disruptor Flute. Same but different, I guess. I would have liked that Seam Rip about now. We might be in a situation where we have to march with the Canonized for one guy to make sure that we're going to get our second white off on this Serra Sanctum moving forward. Stock up. Yep, that's pretty big. This Clown Post deck is very good at taking decks like ours apart, generally speaking. Certainly doesn't help when we make mistakes, though. So this can't make guys. Do we want to make 1/1/1? That doesn't seem like a great use of our mana. But it gives us more mana in our next main phase, so I am going to do it, as horrible as that is. So next turn, this will be able... So when we tap the Serra Sanctum, there'll be 2 enchantments. This will be worth 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. So we'll have 5 mana, so we can play United Battlefront and On Thin Ice in the same turn by doing this. Obviously, On Thin Ice is effectively free as well. I think we're going to have a rough time here. What we want to be playing against is like tempo decks, aggro decks, that sort of jam. Or certain combo decks where our hate pieces line up really well. Like being a 4x Deafening Silence deck can just give us a bunch of free wins here and there. No play from our opponent. Okay, so we did draw the United Battlefront. That is one of the big bangers that we have in our deck. Let's see if they want to interact with this, like Consigned to Memory or something. I think we're just going to go and get the Expedition map here, though. We should have tapped this for more mana when we had the chance. That was loose of me. Losing track a little bit here. 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. If we spend 2 mana to go and get an Urza Saga and play it, that's 1 mana, 2, 3. I think we just cast in this Battlefront now. They don't play Days, at least in their deck, so we're not worried about that. I can't imagine this is going to resolve, though. But if they spend real mana on it, so if they force a negation here by filtering into the Nexus, then it means our Vampire can attack, which is not nothing. Oh wow, we just get to do it. That's interesting. Phyrexian Unlife and Solemnity, please. We've assembled a combo. Now, our opponent has Ugin in the deck, so they don't really care about this combo that much, which is the problem. It does mean their Barragoyf beatdown plan looks terrible, though. Although they still get to draw cards off the Barragoyf, because it still deals us damage. I think that's how it works. End of turn, we're seeing Kozilek's Command. One Shitong. I think this card is very medium. I think it's fine. You can play it. I saw a bunch of people trying to jam it into tempo decks, and that didn't seem very good. This seems like the best home for it because they have lots of mana, so the actual X can be a reasonable number. Whereas in pretty much every other deck, it's not. They have a lot of mana. It's the One Ring. This doesn't draw them cards because of Solemnity. You can make a 20/20 right now if you want to. This card doesn't feel the best. Let's On Thin Ice get rid of this One Shitong, see if our opponent wants to interact. Goodbye. This still adds mana to our overall mana pool because it's an enchantment. I don't think I'm going to make the Marit Lage's turn. Yeah, I'm just going to go and fetch this. I'm going to fetch next turn. I'd like to have it with haste if possible because the fact they can just have Kozilek's commands. And they're probably keeping them knowing that we're trying to do that. Stock up. So we could have fetched when our opponent was shields down on one Shitong. I guess that's the one thing we could do. Alright, they're taking a lot of pain here to get a Barragoyf down. Answers to Barragoyf, we have many. Let's crack this. Let's go and get the Dark Depths now. Can I on thin ice, please? We can indeed. Do I want to put them to the test with my Marit Lage here? The problem is it's also a black creature, so if they have access to Ugin, it's really annoying. I guess we make them have it. I think this is just not going to do anything and they're just going to kill it. But if they don't, I guess we get to win the game. They have so many answers for this between the command and the Ugin. They certainly have enough mana for it. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. So they can easily Ugin and probably play a follow-up spell to take out one of our other bits and pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we are one white pip away from having enough devotion for this to start churning out guys. And that'll be pretty handy with our opponent on a low life total. So we're giving our opponent a bunch of things to worry about. Ideally, I'd like to see him just play a guy that we can kill easily. The fact that we're waiting so long probably suggests that they have like a bunch of ways that they can dig into their deck and they're trying to work out the best way to do that. So Thundertrap Trainer with Offspring, I think. Yeah. So now they're going to take a big look in their deck and see if they can find one of their many answers to our Marit Lage token. Force of Negation is not it. What about the second one? Kozilek's Command. Yep, so they did find it in the end. I wasn't expecting this Marit Lage to go all the way. How far are they going to go in on it? If they're making spawns, they can tap the Ancient Tomb, I think. But if they're not making spawns, they might not want to do that. Eldrazi Confluence. Okay, so they're just going to blink our guys. They had even more answers than expected. Cool. Not really, but it is what it is. Let's go for Phyrexian Unlife here. Just doubling up on our copies. Do I want to get rid of this Thundertrap Train? It doesn't feel like a good use of our mana. I'll play that as land. We'll pass. So now we're going to start making 4/3s every turn. I'm not sure if our opponent's clocked that that's about to start happening because this is a card that nobody plays. There is the reason we held on to our on thin ice. You know, attack me for a little bit of damage. Why are they not attacking with the spawn? This does attack. It's a 1/1. It's not like the newer ones. 4/3. So we know they have the ability to counterspell this, but we may as well make them use it. Eventually we got there and the Force of Negation is happening. I probably just hold this land, make our opponent think about it. We're going to see the Kozilek's Command. They're going to get rid of our guy and dig. How many answers to our nonsense do they have? It's got to be enough, I would assume. How many cards is staying on top of their library? If it's more than 0, then we're in trouble. 2 up, 2 top, 2 bottom. That sounds like we're going to lose this game. But we do have double Phyrexian Unlife, so we get a little bit of time. Because they have to get rid of both of them, really. But that's very easy to do if they're casting an Ugin. Maybe they're on a build that doesn't have Ugin. Seems very unlikely. That's like the reason to have big mana in your deck, is because that card just wins you the game once it touches the table. Although Barragoyf feels a bit like that sometimes. Alright, you can mill yourself. You've got another Barragoyf. Enjoy your Barragoyfs, I guess. It'd be nice to not play against Barragoyfs one time, though. Like, it's not even that great against our deck. It's just a really irritating design, in my opinion. I think it was a mistake to print this. I don't necessarily think it's too powerful. I think it does limit what people can do in the format a bit. Okay, we're going to get a demon. A Runed Halo. Sign me up. I'm going to name Barragoyf. We're doing our bit for literacy today. We're making our opponent do lots of reading. Are we going to see a big Kozilek's Command digging for an answer for this? Are they that bothered by it? At some point they find Ugin and we lose. That's how this game is going to go. Kozilek's Command for 5. Yep. Our opponent's endgame is much better than ours because Ugin is just doing it all. And Kozilek's Command in the late game in a big mana deck is just any card you want. 2 top, 3 bottom. There is the Force of Will. We shall pass. No cards left in our opponent's hand, though. But they do like the top 2 cards of their library. Haven't seen an Ugin milled yet. You go ahead. Maybe they'll just mill their whole deck here and lose. I guess we could have taken a free block on the Thundertrap Trainer. That was something we could have done there. It's being a bit lazy, I think. 1 Shitong. That's what we're taking off the first one. About the second one. 1 Ring, Kozilek's Command. So there's no Ugin. Maybe they don't have Ugin. What is exile target non-land permanent, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. If they blink our Phyrexian Unlife, we lose. You only lose when state-based effects are checked, right? And they can't check the state-based effects in the middle of resolving a spell. I don't know. We'll see. Another planes, not the one I wanted. Do I want to just block these Thunder Trap Trainers? Do I want to get some damage in to counteract this? I think we're winning when our opponent runs out of cards in their library. As sad as that may sound to some of you. We can start double blocking Barragoyfs and just getting them off the board. But our life total is obviously not at a great place right now. This is going to be a Kozilek's command for their whole library, I would assume. So if they have an answer, they should be able to win the game. Because the other cards that are on the bottom of their library are ones they've already seen. Okay, just a big one Shitong. Attacking through this isn't going to help very much unless we go wide. But again, they're just drawing a bunch of cards. They don't get it to be large, actually. No, yeah, it doesn't get to be large because of the Solemnity. So this isn't actually a threat for our guys in the sky. They're just going to turn everything sideways. They did draw a million cards off the one Shitong. They have an Ugin or a Khan. Those things will be able to get them out of this bind. If we can find more copies of these, though, maybe we can do enough. Eldrazi Confluence. Okay. So clearly it doesn't blink and save them if they do this. That has to be the assumption on our part. A Kozilek's command. We're going to keep digging. They can't flip over cards with Barragoyf without milling themselves soon. Sink into Super number 1. So now they're going to hit us for a bunch of stuff, right? Because these will be lethal. And then we die. Okay, we did... I don't want to say that we punted the first game here, because I think our opponent does just kill our guy. Now, we obviously made a mistake attacking into One Ring Protection. My brain was like, oh, One Ring's untapped. They don't have protection. My brain just kind of fuzzled on that one. But I'm pretty sure we're dead. Our opponent paused at moments they had cards in hand. But still, this matchup feels horrible. Let's go to round number 3. Another Urza Saga hand. I think this one is fine. I'll keep it. I wouldn't mind finding another land so that we don't have to use the Urza Saga to fuel the other Urza Saga. We're against some sort of like black tempo deck, perhaps. Just get Shadowspear in. Probably going to make us look like some sort of weird paintery, like white painter was a bit like this. Or Hammer Time, something weird like that is maybe what we look like. Planes into Shadowspear is kind of an odd start. A Meticulous Archive. Binning off a Tundra. Are we talking about some sort of control deck here? Control deck, if it's Beanstalk, is going to have the ability to interact with our enchantments, which is obviously not what we want. But we have tools for that in the sideboard a little bit in these protection things. Greater Auramancy, that's what it's called. Alright, there is the planes we wanted. So against control decks, Urza Saga is pretty good because they just sit there trying to interact, but then they have to interact at multiple points with your Urza Saga, especially pre-board before they get a grip full of Consigned to Memories to help. Now, our opponent could be Breakfast and we could just die immediately. That is very much a thing that could happen here. Haven't seen a lot of Breakfast and it's been performing very poorly lately. But that doesn't mean somebody isn't playing it. Narset. That is not the sort of thing that a Breakfast deck does. Alright. We're against control deck with a double Urza Saga hand. This feels good. They're probably going to have Dress Down. We just have to suck it up. A Dark Depths. Not the greatest in this matchup, unfortunately, because our opponent is going to have access to Swords to Plowshares and some other white removal spells. Things like Prismatic Ending, Teferi, these sorts of things can jam us up, depending on if our Dark Depths has to attack multiple turns, or if they can cast them at instant speed because of Teferi allowing them to Prismatic Ending. There's just a bunch of ways that they can deal with that. Okay, what are we looking at here? Although if they spend the resources that would be safe for this on... Oh, okay, so there's Stoneblade. So Stoneblade had a very surprising run at the Asia Eternal Weekend where it was actually one of the better performing decks, which is a deck that basically didn't exist really in the format, or in the meta, I should say, for quite some time. So it's exciting to see that. Maybe I'll get it on the channel at some point. But we're getting some indication of the things our opponent's going to have in their deck. They might be running some of the wheel effects. They shuffle off that Ponder though. They could have wheel effects, which makes us kind of want to deal with this Narset. They're going to go to cleanup, so they might just burn a Source of Plowshares on this so they don't have to discard it. Yep, that's exactly what happens. We don't get a window where we can make them discard a card first. That's not how this game works, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I should say. I wouldn't like the game to work that way. Get this in. And get the Lavaspur Boots. Let's play this other Urza Saga. Just in case we have like scary wheel stuff we have to care about. I am just going to hit the Narset, I think, here. I can certainly see a case for not doing that. Next turn we get to make a guy and immediately give it some boots. So we can bash in for a decent chunk. And maybe at some point our opponent goes shields down and we just go a hasty 20-20 that they're not expecting. And then they die. We can do that if we find a Solemnity. We just have that sat in play. Alternatively, if we draw a Solemnity, we can just have the permanent Urza Saga plan. A Murktide Regent, you say? Okay, we probably want to interact with this. Why mana? Is this going to be Prismatic Ending paying the 1 for the ward? Feels like it. Here it is. Yeah, they spent a while putting on the stack, which is normally the sign that your opponent's casting an X spell. Or a modal spell as well. Goodbye, friend. Our opponent's got 5 cards. One of them is the sword. Let's see if we can put your guy on ice. It's worth a Force of Negation to you, is it? Okay. I'm just going to crank out some more boys. We can stick a Rune Halo if we want to, and then our opponent might not be able to remove that for a little bit. Prismatic Endings able to take out our stuff again is not where we want to be. I'd rather not be playing against control decks. I would prefer to be playing against all the aggro and tempo decks. And again, like I said, some of the combo decks. I think we do have a pretty good selection of actual competitive, like tier 1 to 3 decks that we can actually beat. But there will definitely be some that we can't. And this might well be one of those. But the double Urza Saga hand is about the best we can hope for. Let's make a little friend. What do we want here? Probably just an expedition map. Just get some more resources for the future. Let's equip. Let's make an expedition map. We're about to get dressed down. I can feel it in my bones. Alright, here comes the majority of your life total. Oh wow, we just hit them. Huh. Okay. You're going to have to hold back your Murktide this turn. But we can just give one of our guys trample. And then that's not going to be enough. They're going to need a removal spell as well here. A Batter Skull. Okay, so we attack with both. They have to block here. They take 7. So this die, we trample over 3. They gain 4. So they end up going up on life a little bit if we do that. Okay, let's see what we draw. Maybe we can remove one of these little guys. United Battlefront. We could just equip here. Attack with just this one. So if we attack with both of them, they block here, they go up to 7, they block here. So this will trade with the Murktide and trample over for a little bit. And then we crack an expedition map, put another Saga into play, I think is our best option here. Right, so they're going to block like this, so we're going to trample over for 4. They're going to gain 4, but then they're going to lose their Batter Skull here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we could, instead of getting this going, we could just play this Rune Halo and name Murktide Regent. So if they equip the Murktide Regent, it doesn't actually do that much. And then we can just United Battlefront our way through. This will be an 11 power guy. A daze. Yikes. Okay. I don't want to play out the Dark Depths because we might just make a 20-20 next turn with haste. Can we make it with haste and trample? 1, 2, 3. No, we can't make it with haste and trample. So they just put the Batter Skull on the Murktide, attack for a bunch, and then we get to resolve United Battlefront. We are on a relatively good amount of life, so this isn't going to kill us. We can take 2 hits from this in theory. It is annoying their life total is so high. Okay, they've got 2 mystery cards in hand. Let's cast United Battlefront. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if they have a bunch of interaction in their hand. Okay. The Phyrexian Unlife can buy us in another turn. Because if you're on 1 life and you take a hit under Phyrexian Unlife, what happens is you go to 0. You only start accruing poison. Well, you go to minus whatever, but you only start accruing poison counters a little bit later. Is it better to get an uncounterable 20-20 or do I United Battlefront for answers for this? The 20-20 dies to Prismatic Vista. Sorry, no, not Prismatic Vista, Prismatic Ending, except they can only do that at sorcery speed. And we can make this at instant speed. There's no point attacking here. It doesn't put us up to a high enough life total for that to matter. So we know their opponent's got a Meteor Sword. If they have a Daze, that sucks for us. If they have a Swords to Plowshares, we gain 20, we get to continue the Song and Dance. I think the correct play here is to go and get the Thespian stage. Does our opponent have Wastelands? We haven't seen any yet. I don't want to get killed by Prismatic Ending, which we have seen. So I'm going to make our creature in the attack step. So if they want to deal with it, it has to be using a Swords to Plowshares, which just gives us more time. Please don't attack with your Murktide Regent. That would be my preference. Oh no, why are they attacking? What have you got, opponent? If it's just a Swords to Plowshares, then that's fine. Okay, I've never wanted my opponent to Swords to Plowshares my creature that much before, but here we are. So now we have Meteor Sword and 1 blank. I would like to have another land so we can play around a potential Daze here. But maybe our opponent plays something out? No. Okay, so Force of Negation and Daze are potential things we have to be worried about. Okay, so we can play around the Daze now. So let's Unite that Battlefront. We've drawn another one of those. Okay, so what do we have here? On Thin Ice I think looks good here. I would also like Solemnity. That seems reasonable. Goodbye Murktide Regent. Now we can bash in for a good chunk. There's what, 12 damage? So there's a 3-turn clock. And then next turn we can just have a hasty Marit Lage. Oh, they're using their Swords to Plowshares. Are we going to get them? The old Marit Lage Rope-a-Dope here. It's only going to deal 24 damage. But we can give it lifelink and haste and ward and all sorts of cool keywords. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. This allows them to put the Meteor Sword next turn. What are they getting with this, though? Have they got that stupid Aegis thing? Like, I don't remember what it's called. Assimilation Aegis. No, just another Meteor Sword. Yeah, looks good, to be honest. I will deploy this Dark Depths. I'll get a 2020. I will equip it. I will equip it. They're not going to block here anyway, so there's no point putting on here to trample over. I will attack for a bunch of damages. Now, an interesting thing about Marit Lage is it's indestructible. So, you're going to struggle a bit there, opponent. Maybe we've done enough. Opponent is a bit more on the tempo side than the control side, which probably favours us a little bit compared to if they were doing... Okay, you can have that. If they were doing something like Beanstalk control deck, it could be very different. Our life total has really been on a roller coaster. We've been up in the 30s. We've been down to 1 life. It's been yo-yo in this whole game. Oh, yeah. We got a game. Let's see if we can do better in the sideboard. I think we probably just want more Ossifications in our deck in general. Card seems pretty good. Ossification comes in. Maybe the Ghostly Prisons just aren't really where we want to be here. We've seen Planeswalkers, so I wouldn't mind having the Spark Rupture. It's a cantrip and thing that deals with it. Stony Silence can stop them activating their things. I'm not too bothered by that. I think I would also like some Greater Auramancy, just to give us a little bit of protection. The Rune, I guess we don't need Rest in Peace. And we probably don't need the Ghost Vacuum. So that gives us the Greater Auramancy, and then let's just submit. It's not very exciting, but I think we're keeping it. I quite like the Spark Rupture. We've seen... No, so they have to have Tamiyo in their deck. Why wouldn't you have Tamiyo in your deck? You're playing blue. Play the best blue cards. Our curve is not great here. We can go Spark Rupture into United Battlefront or Solemnity into Battlefront. And our opponent's probably going to have to fight over them. But if they're fighting with Dazes, I don't really like that. If they're fighting with Force of Wills, I enjoy that exchange. They milled over a Tamiyo. Tamiyo, they've got a second Tamiyo. That's the reason you would mill over a Tamiyo. White, white. It's a Stoneforge Mystic. So we have a horrible situation where we can on Thin Ice to Stoneforge. But if they have a Prismatic Ending, they then get to get rid of the on Thin Ice. I think we're going to try it out, though. We just don't want to deal with Batterskull right now. It's interesting it's not Cauldra. I guess putting yourself above 20 life is important when someone's trying to clock you for 20. So I can kind of understand that. But they must have Cauldra in there as well. Surely. They've got Meteor Swords. Maybe that's just their top end? Uncertain. So next turn we can probably throw out the Spark Rupture. I would like to get a Urza Saga up to 2 before playing the Solemnity ideally. But we'll see. A Wasteland. Sure. And there is Tamiyo. Thanks, I hate it. So we can stop them accruing clues by just Oblivion Ring in here. But we know our opponent has access to stuff that gets in the way of us resolving a 3-drop. So I think I'm going to just go for the Spark Rupture. Cantrips if it resolves. That's not nothing. Is this worth 2 cards to you? Because you can just keep turning your Tamiyo sideways. But if we get this in, then we know our Brainstorm... Sorry, we know their Brainstorm won't do anything useful because it'll just turn the Tamiyo into a Planeswalker. And then the Planeswalker won't be able to do anything. Or the Planeswalker will still be a creature. It'll be a 2-2. But I don't think we mind our opponent having a 2-2. Alright, we get to cantrip with a card. Who is the blue player now? We've got cantrips in our deck, just like you. In comes a Tamiyo. So they didn't counterspell our Spark Rupture, but it stayed on the stack for a while. That suggests to me they do have an answer. And it's probably going to be a Force rather than a Daze. Looks like the On Thin Ice is going to be removed by a Prismatic Ending here. This was certainly one of the risks. Right, they're cracking a clue first. You still want a Prismatic Ending? There it is. So they get the guy back. And they get to go get a Meteor Sword. Maybe they just have Batterskull and Meteor Swords. I haven't really checked through the lists yet, very much yet. Pithing Needle. Okay, that is not unhelpful. Pithing Needle. Let's name Stoneforge Mystic, please. Stoneforge Mystic. Now I'm going to play a Solemnity. I'm expecting this to receive a counterspell from our opponent. I don't necessarily want this in play, but I would like their counterspell to be used on Solemnity rather than Oblivion Ring or Battlefront. There it is. They took the bait. The Brainstorm is kind of switched off now, but we do have this whole Tamiyo drawing a million cards problem. We can play around a Daze this turn. They're coming up with our United Battlefront. Our opponent's got 3 mystery cards. It's going to be 4 once they crack the sword. Crack the clue. They've got the sword in hand and a Batterskull. Okay, so now they're pondering. If we see a shuffle, I'm kind of interested in the United Battlefront. They can't crack a clue now, but they can crack it in our turn. Because, well, they can crack it, but it just means they flip their Tamiyo because it's a mandatory flip. And they don't really want to have to do that because then they just have a 2-2 instead of a Planeswalker or a Howling Mind style effect like it's doing now. I decline to use Ponder's ability. We're not very mana efficient this turn if we don't play the United Battlefront. I think we're going to Oblivion Ring here. Playing around a couple of dazes. Right, goodbye Tamiyo. Don't want any part of that. And then we can Expedition Map. This can go and find us an Urza Saga, potentially. Right, just crack that clue in the end step. Yep. So we can go and get an Urza Saga. Or we could Unite Battlefront and see what we find. Because if we Unite Battlefront first, it's through a Daze. And that makes a lot more sense than just jamming it into the Daze where it can get us. There does come a point where they start hard casting Meteor Sword and Batterskull. That time might be now for the Batterskull. The Meteor Sword is just a really interesting addition to this deck. And I think this is the reason why people are even sleeving up Stoneforge Mystics right now. Just having this tutorable answer that does it all. And 3 mana to equip it isn't the worst either. Just to pump your guy by 3 power. Here comes the Batterskull. Oh no, Wrath of the Skies. Dude. Why'd you do that? That's so rude. All of my permanents. I was using those. And they get a Tamiyo back. And it can now turn into a Planeswalker. Well, well, well. I don't think Wrath of the Skies matchups are going to be very friendly for us. Okay, let's play this one out. Okay, do you have another Force of Will? They don't. We only hit one thing. Okay. Not what we wanted. Only one thing. How many hits does our deck have? So we got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Half of our deck. We missed on half of our deck in 7 cards. I'll be honest, that hurts a little bit. Why couldn't they just play the Batterskull last turn instead of this Wrath of the Skies? That was rude. I guess we would have had more things they got caught up by if they waited a turn. Which is not very nice for us either. Here comes the Batterskull. To be honest though, it is nice to see Batterskull again. It's been a very long time since we've seen this card in Legacy. There's a Saga. I like this one. How big are we going with our March of the Canonized? Our opponent's got potentially a Daze in hand. I'm going to have 4 guys. 4 guys can trade with a Germ. I don't really want to do that, but it can happen. We can also just chump block for a few turns. Alright, we got Force of Will on this. Imagine if our United Battlefront had actually hit another thing. We could have like removed their Tamiyo. That would have been among the things I wanted to do with it. Yep, the Wasteland on the Saga. Sure. But this takes them off of equipping Battleskull. We've already seen they have 2-meter swords in the first game. I don't know why they would have less now. Okay, pre-war formware. What does this get back? A Tamiyo or another Stoneforge Mystic? Okay, another Stoneforge Mystic, which then gets the Meteor Sword. I don't think we can win this one. Our opponent is quite far behind on clock though, so I'm going to continue playing this out. We need to take the edges we have with our deck, given some of the questionable cards that have found its way into our deck. Crack in your clues. I think we actually lost this game because of Tamiyo generating a couple of clues. It just gave them enough stuff so they have just enough counter spells a few times. So like the first time the Tamiyo was down, it generated 2 clues, I think. So just those extra 2 cards ended up being quite big, and now they're just generating more cards. But it's not a Legacy League if you don't get dumpstered by Tamiyo just being busted. Okay, so now they're deciding to flip the Tamiyo. So this gives us options for Ossification to just remove it outright. But then they have the Meteor Sword they can put in whenever they want. I do think we are dead here, but we're going to play it out. Our opponent's quite slow playing this game. So if we've got 50% more clock than them, we should just play it out. This Stoneforge is going to go and get the second Meteor Sword unless they have a Cauldra. It's just another pre-war formware. They could have just played the pre-war formware to get back the other one. We could remove their graveyard with some of the cards in our sideboard if we wanted to. We could play Rest in Peace and stuff to make pre-war formware worse. But I don't think that's what we're about. Sure, they're going to draw a card. They've been doing a lot of that. This is just a 2-turn clock. They just turn their guys sideways, tick up the Tamiyo. I guess they can just attack once with the Germ token. The next turn they can attack with everything. They return a Force of Will, just ticking all the boxes. Not a bad place for you to be. I think if this is game... I'm trying to remember if this is game 2 or 3 now. I think this is game 2. But I might be in for a rude awakening when they kill us next turn, and it turns out this was game 3 all along. United Battlefront. Ruined Halo. You can't name Germ, by the way, because this is not a card, this is a token. But let's play it and see if our opponent reacts. Like, even if it mattered, they could just Meteor Sword it. I'm going to name Abandon Hope if they let me name a card with it. Wow, they're countering it, sure. So now they just get to go through. We just get to burn another 20 seconds of clock from our opponent. Like I said, we are significantly ahead of them on clock. If it's just a couple of minutes, I'm not going to try and grind and be that sort of person. But we're playing a bit of a cheesy deck. All right, Meteor Sword. You're going to blow up my Phyrexian Unlife? Yeah. So they have to do this, otherwise we start gaining poison counters instead of taking damage. And then they just beat through. And that is the end of the game. And if I'm correct, we are about to go into game 3. Yes, okay. I did correctly work out what game we were in. It's been one of those weeks, team. Let's have a look. I don't think we want any more of these things. I do think we probably need more Ossification style cards just in our deck altogether. How do we beat the Wrath of the Skies? We don't. Our deck's supposed to have Nevermore in. That's what we need. So Nevermore is a 3-mana Meddling Mage enchantment, basically. That's probably what we needed in the sideboard. 3 mana is obviously a lot, though. But when there are problem cards like Wrath of the Skies and you're fine apart from that card coming down, I think it's worth having it in your deck to draw to. I like some of these cards. This is a slow hand. We're not really doing anything with being on the play. I think we have to mulligan this for something that comes down earlier. Okay, this is a similar but better hand. We can keep this. I think I get rid of the Unlife. I don't know which of these I want is the problem. So what do I name with the Pithing Needle? We can name the backside of Tamiyo, or we could name Stoneforge Mystic. Do we need to do it now is the question. Am I likely to play something on turn 2? Probably not. I don't think we're just jamming a Ruined Halo on turn 2. So we can see if our opponent plays a Tamiyo. I don't really want to name Tamiyo straight away. If they don't play a Tamiyo here, though, then I will name Stoneforge. If they name a Tamiyo, then maybe we just hold the Pithing Needle. Alright, they played the best card in their deck. Awkward for us. Solemnity. Are we just throwing stuff out to try and mess with our opponent? I think so. Let's see if they'll counterspell this. I'll name Murktide Regent with it. I don't want to be targeted. I don't want to be dealt damage by that. They also don't have Daze or Force of Will because they just F6 through that turn. Which means we can just play Solemnity into other stuff. If we see a Stoneforge here, we can name it. If they flip the Tamiyo, we can name it. Or we can work towards Solemnity doing its thing. A Brainstorm. Okay, so we are going to be naming the Tamiyo this turn. Are they going to have counter spells, though? It's certainly possible. We can at least play around the soft counters. But we can't do anything about the force of wills and negations of the world. Tamiyo is plussing, of course. Solemnity doesn't work on Planeswalkers, sadly. I'm going to cast this Pithing Needle. And then decide which land we're playing. Okay, we're just in. Tamiyo, Seasoned Scholar. Let's make sure I name the right side. We did name the right side. I could just go and get this up and running, but I'm going to play my non-wastelandable land out this turn instead. I think that's going to be the best bet for us. Allow us to play this United Battlefront a round of days. If we think our opponent is F6'd. We can pass through our first main phase and go in the and then go to the second main phase to see if our opponent's F6'd. Alright, we're going to see the Pithing Needle going bye-bye. And Tamiyo ticking up. This is just a... Okay, we need to win the game in a short amount of time. Let's just Tamiyo our way through it. Let's just go to our second main phase. Our opponent feels like they are holding something up. I guess this is the turn I play the Solemnity. And then next turn we try the United Battlefront through days. They might counter this because we can do some pretty weird stuff with it. They did counter it. Okay. This doesn't impact their Tamiyo. They can now minus the Tamiyo, which is not really what we want to see. That's going to give them the ability to stop our next play. Felia. Didn't even know they were running Felia, but it's not really a surprise given how it interacts with like blinking Planeswalkers to reset them or Stoneforge Mystic. Just taking out opponents' bits and pieces. Alright, this is why we haven't been playing out the Thespian stage. Oh, they're just plussing with the Tamiyo. Playing some more cards out. No. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. Presumably Meteor Sword, I would imagine. It's got to be the one you go for here. There it is. Alright. This and Felia. Pretty gross. So I'm going to blink there. Stoneforge Mystic. They didn't misclick and randomly hit their Tamiyo and help us out, which would have been nice. Alright. Our opponent doesn't have Force of Will this turn unless the top card of their library is either blue card or Force of Will. So our United Battlefront is likely to resolve. It has to do some amount of work. I guess they could get a blue card off of this if they have Cryptic Coat, but we haven't seen that yet. I don't suspect that's the thing they have. Our opponent's deck looks quite sweet though. Phyrexian Unlife. I think we need to answer the Tamiyo here. So the emergency clue crack is mandatory here. Okay, there wasn't the emergency clue crack. But we have other problems here. We go on thin ice deals with one of our problems. Can't deal with the other problem. We can get a Greater Auramancy and just protect our stuff. That doesn't feel great, but I think it's what we have to do here. So we say okay to this. The on thin ice has to get rid of... It's probably the Felia, isn't it? Because if we get rid of the Felia... So they can put in one Meteor Sword, which can maybe blow up our Greater Auramancy. But then we also have to deal with the Tamiyo Ultimate. Oh, Tamiyo, why do you exist? The question I ask myself all the time. If we get rid of the Stoneforge Mystic, what happens is they blink out this, and then we get it back. That doesn't seem that bad. I don't think it matters, and they're just going to draw half their library. I think we're just going to concede to the Tamiyo. I think if this was just a normal game where instead of Tamiyo they just have like a fairish Magic the Gathering card instead, this ends up being a really interesting game. But the problem is there's just this one mana card in the format that just wins the game on its own too easily. Alright, we are now 1 and 2, so the positive record is still live if we can win out. So let's get to it. Our opener has some problems with it. We're on the draw though. We have quite a mana dense deck. We can afford to miss once, and I think that's okay. I'm going to keep this one. It's got action, and the expedition map can fix some things a little bit for us if necessary. If we're seeing a bunch of creatures coming down, Ketria Triumph, is this going to be like beans? Could be. Alright, another land. Very much what I want to see. Let's get this expedition map down. And now we can remove something like a beanstalk with a seam rip. We've got on thin ice, which can handle creatures. I'm going to see a brainstorm into what? The lack of a land before the brainstorm probably means, and probably doesn't mean anything thinking about it. Like they were just going to see which fetch they had, see if they want the cards, and they can decide which land they're playing. It's just the correct way of doing it. We're not showing them any reason why they shouldn't do that. Okay, so this looks like, it does look very much like beans. They're going to just prismatic ending my expedition map. That would be a little bit rude, to be honest with you. I'm not going to play around One Shi Tong unless I see it. I'm not particularly fussed by that card. Let's see what our opponent's up to. Another white source. So we might be quite white heavy. Up the beanstalk, you say. We have an answer for it. But this is, again, really not the sort of matchup we're looking to play against. There's also like 5% of the meta, and it's like 5 to 10% of the meta is control decks. So we shouldn't be queuing into too many of them. But that's part of the fun of Magic. You never know what you're going to face, and sometimes it's going to be a bad day for you, and sometimes you're just going to have the perfect matchups, then you win a tournament. Let's go and get an Urza's Saga, please. We don't need to show them any of our spicy stuff just yet. This turn is probably going to be Seam Rip. We play the Saga, we Seam Rip, or we play the Saga and then we Oblivion Ring, trying to take out the Beanstalk. But the problem is they've already drawn a card from it, so we're already going to be behind once we take it out. Right, give me my Saga. I think we're playing out the Oblivion Ring here. It's not as flexible as Seam Rip. Well, it's not as cheap as Seam Rip, sorry, and it is more flexible, is what I mean to say. However, our opponent is not going to be a Daze deck, and we're going to be mana efficient now, so that next turn we can have another go at removing this and playing a Seam Rip on the same turn. Or we can play the Solemnity next turn. Alright, we're just going to be able to take out this Beanstalk. Now, they can remove this Oblivion Ring and get their Beanstalk back, but they probably already have, you know, got the value from the Beanstalk. This is trading 2 for 1 here. It's taking a card out of our hand and isn't taking one out of theirs because it replaced itself. That is a good place for our opponent to be. They're also playing incredibly slowly. Like they're taking a long time to pass priority, which is a bit of a scary thing to do when you're playing a very dirtily and slow control deck. I really don't want to try and capitalize on that. I'd rather just play a game of Magic the Gathering. Okay, so they're going to get this, and then they're going to get their card back. And then we can Seam Rip and move on with life. I'm kind of into getting this Solemnity down this turn. So if we Seam Rip, this pays for itself if it resolves, because it's going to give +1 mana to the Sanctum. But at least our opponent's unlikely to have Wrath of the Skies. That's something we can be happy about, I guess. Right, the Riddler. So they're warping this in. This draws them a card off the Beanstalk. I think this is probably the best control deck in the format right now as well, the Beanstalk deck. This sort of Bant Beans shell that's just splashing other colours to make the Leyline Binding work for the most part. All right, let's try and Seam Rip. Okay, we say goodbye to the Beanstalk. So now this is going to tap for 2. So we can crank out a friend. And we're Beanstalking, are we? I guess we're not going to be cranking out a friend. I don't know, I think we're not going to be playing the Solemnity. So many cards in hand. Would I rather have... So I can either have 2 constructs or the potential to have more constructs. Our opponent hasn't used any counter magic yet. Do we want to make them use their counter magic by playing stuff that they might interact with, like the Solemnity? Or do we want to have... Do I think this construct is going to win the game? No, I don't think it is. Which means I think we're going to try and Solemnity to get multiple constructs. I think this combo wins us the game if it sticks around long enough. Whereas just getting 2 constructs out of the Saga is unlikely to do enough in my experience. Like our opponent has their mana underneath them, they've got a full grip of cards, their engine is online. A couple of guys is not going to kill them. But an endless supply of guys is a very different prospect. Hopefully, they don't quite work out the interaction that's going on here. And they let it go through. Certainly feels like they have an answer. This has sat on the stack for some time. Alright, we're in. So we do have the Urza Saga machine. They might just have another binding. They could have a prismatic ending. They might just find a way of killing us relatively soon. Or they might just have nothing, and they'd let it through because they didn't have a choice. But why would you spend that much time on your clock letting it sit on the stack? You need to be efficient with your turns when you're playing a control deck in terms of time, so I don't think that's what the case is here. Hedge Maze, this is going to take out one of those Brainstorm cards. Not quite a fetch down, but next best thing. Swords to Plowshares, so they're not bothered about our endless supply of guys. Curious. Do I think a 2020 is going to be helpful here? Probably won't hurt. They milled over a Swords to Plowshares already. Sure, let's have a 2020. Let's just keep cranking out the boys. Leyline Binding. Oh look, your cantripping removal spell. Alright, taking out the Solemnity now. And plowing our guy. So, as this works out, we still end up with 2 guys from our Saga. So we didn't lose anything really by doing this. And our opponent's running out of Leyline Bindings. We could just assemble the Marit Lage combo the old-fashioned way. I didn't tap the Serra Sanctum right then when it would have tapped for 2 to try and get the Urza Saga going, because we already have the mana to do that. And I'd rather not play at sorcery speed. We're going to see the Riddler coming back this turn. Alright, just a Murktide Regent. We have an answer for that in hand. Will it resolve? Probably not. That's just the price we pay for the deck we're playing. Not great at forcing things through. And another up the beanstalk. Sure. Should just put some mill enchantments in our deck and we can just mill our opponent out in matchups like this. Let's make a guy. Let's make a guy. Let's get an expedition map. Let's play a land. I think I will try and ice this Murktide Regent. Force of Will, it draws them 2 cards. I think the writing is more or less on the wall on this game. Let's play out a Ghost Vacuum. We can't really run our opponent out of action in their hand. We can run them out of counters in their deck, which is a terrifying thing, but that's probably where we have to be going here. A third up the beanstalk. That seems a little risky. Like, if our deck's just full of ways of stopping us from losing the game, they could deck out, which is kind of what our deck's trying to do. So maybe we can sneak this one. I'm going to play the Phyrexian Unlife. So there's an option we could have taken out this Flooded Strand to make it harder for them to Murktide Regent here, but they still have enough mana to Murktide Regent anyway. I don't think that's a misstep. We've also on 40 life, so our opponent does need to pick up the pace a little bit here. A Swords, 2 Plowshares. We're on 44. Time to get my 7 times table out. An Endurance. This is going to presumably remove the cards from their graveyard to put them back in their deck, and it'll also pump the Murktide a little bit too. Would I like to take one of these cards out of their deck permanently? I think I will. I will take out the Force of Will, because we're playing against our opponent's entire deck here. And now they can shuffle those in. It was going to grow the Murktide anyway. This way they can't get it back. So this is going to be 12. That's going to be a 4-turn clock. They obviously have the Endurance, which can also get stuck in, but we might be able to contest that. Okay. Snow-covered plains. I don't know if I want to deploy that. Actually, I know what we do. We go 1, 2, crack this, go and get ourselves a Saga. Play the Saga. And then we'll play this card out. We're not really trying to resolve this card, but we're just seeing if our opponent has anything to say about it. We don't need to block the Endurance this time around. Oh no, our opponent's going to put us back down to 20 off of this hit. Or even lower if they attack with the Endurance. I imagine they probably will. They just want to try and win the game whilst they have time on the clock. We're going to see the Riddler come back. Or are we going to see a 4th Theolingus? I don't know if they're running 4th Theolingus, but it's possible. They could have Mystic Sanctuary in this build as well. Okay, they're just playing the Riddler. They're going to go to, what, 29 cards left in their library. And then the Riddler's going to draw them another card. 28 cards. I don't think our chances of resolving spells look very high. An Orcish Bowmasters. Just throwing everything at us. Makes sense. So we need to make our Saga activate this turn. That takes 2 mana. This already makes 2 mana. So that gives us 4 mana to cast something like a United Battlefront here. Is this going to resolve? I'm guessing no. But there's always a possibility it does. And that's the life that we're trying to head towards. They're paying costs. It's going to be a Force of Will. It is indeed a Force of Will. They're going to get closer to decking. I don't know how many how many Endurances they have. So we're going to take 12 from the Murktide. Then we go and get ourselves another Urza Saga token. Alright, we'll make this now so we gain 1 more life. We can block Orcish Bowmasters here, and we take, what, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20? Take 20 on this turn. That doesn't seem like the number I want to be taking, does it? Block this one, so that if they grow it, it doesn't matter as much. Yeah, so if we didn't block this one and we block the Orc Army, the Orcish Bowmaster itself, then we die this turn. Okay. Being on 1 life is kind of a big deal. It's going to buy us a significant amount of time in terms of a whole extra turn here. We can do March of the Canonized stuff as well, if that's our jam. United Battlefront. Let's make a guy. What do I want here? Is it Shadowspear? Possibly, just try and keep our health up. Let's go for a United Battlefront, please. I can't believe they have another counterspell in their deck that's drawing 1,000,000 cards a turn and is full of counterspells. At least this one didn't draw them extra cards, I guess. We're not dead because of how Phyrexian Unlife works. We're going to go to 0 life. And then we die if they have their 4th Leyline Binding. Okay, so now they ping us down. That's going to put us into 0. So then the damage will come across as poison. Right, I'm just going to F6 where possible here. We don't get any chance to do anything here. And then we die. On 12 poison. 16 poison, sorry, because of the Quantum Ritter as well. Alright, that was, what, a game 1? That was a lot, wasn't it? So, how do we navigate this one? We don't have the best tools here, do we? Rest in Peace and Spark Rupture look kind of interesting to me. The Auramancy and the Ossification are options, but don't look incredible. I don't think this is a Shadowspear matchup. So that can go. The Ruined Halo, it can stop Murktide, which is kind of a big deal. The Rest in Peace stops their recursion and means that they might actually deck. I like that as an option for us. Pithing Needle can stop the backside of Tamiyo. Ghost Vacuum is just going to be replaced by Rest in Peace. So at the moment, this is our configuration. I would like to get this Spark Rupture in. What do we lose to it? Maybe a Phyrexian Unlife. I don't really think the combo is looking that hot right now. Let's get Greater Auramancy in. The Solemnity is fine. Do I want this just as more remove? I don't think we need that. Actually, the Ghostly Prison's come out. What am I talking about? Let's get this in. And do I want another Phyrexian Unlife? Or do I want the Ossification? I think I'll just take the Ossification. We could board in the Stony Silence just to deal with Tamiyo clues, but that doesn't seem great. And we would rather just have our expedition maps working. Okay, I like these cards. We have the Solemnity, so we can just lock in on the Saga. We have Rest in Peace, which can jam up our opponent's ability to play Murktide Regents. It'll reduce the power of their Tamiyo because it can't minus. Endurance then looks a little sketchy as well in terms of like recycling their deck. Flooded Strand, any plays? We're going to see turn 1 Tamiyo. Bane of my existence. Yep. Okay. Let's Rest in Peace. This means if Tamiyo flips, it's just going to be racing to ultimate, which is obviously still a problem. But one thing at a time, deck. Please don't play the turn 2 Beanstalk. They didn't play the turn 2 Beanstalk. They did play a turn 1 Draw Engine instead, though. So this time we're going to try and lock in on the Solemnity. They can Leyline Binding this. This matchup does feel absolutely abysmal, though. Just a Meticulous Archive, getting their Surveil value. They got rid of a land off the top. Now we're locked in on the Saga Factory. That's not a bad place to be. Although our opponent's still got a second main phase, they could do all sorts of horrible things. They're just passing to us. Okay, well we don't have to do very much here, do we? I will deploy an expedition map. It makes our constructs bigger so they don't die to Orcish Bowmasters. This is actually important. Consign to memory. Okay, you got it, opponent. I assume we're going to see a clue cracked, and we do indeed. I think the Beanstalk deck's having 2 really powerful early draw engines that can just come down. Does put them in a pretty good spot. They're going to be very good into like a bunch of the aggressive decks and things. Alright, let's just keep making our friends. Let's try and make a Greater Auramancy. This just means it's harder for them to remove our permanents now. I'm okay to attack with this construct, I think. Try and force through an additional point of damage. And we succeeded. Lovely. Going to be drawing from the clue. You can draw from the other one as well. Sure. So this Tamiyo has already been Ancestral Recall worth of cards. Okay. Now if our opponent's got the answers, they're going to find them. It's a case of, do we get to put enough damage into them before that case? Okay, just to capture a Trian, this is going to give them Leyline Bindings, so they can Binding the Auramancy. They don't have any green mana, so they're not drawing cards from it just yet, but again, like I said, they've got this draw engine in Tamiyo already that's doing the job of Beanstalk without needing a Beanstalk. Imagine this Tamiyo was just like an Urza or something, like it used to be in the Beanstalk decks. It would probably make the whole match feel a lot fairer. Because even though we've got this little combo of all the Saga tokens in the world, I still feel like I'm a million miles behind just the amount of cards they have. The deck is obviously full of removal, so they can just point stuff at whatever and wreck our day. Quantum Riddler, at least this is just drawing a card. It's not going to be sticking around. It's not going to be drawing multiple cards. It's not going to be triggering a Beanstalk. They're having to go to cleanup now. I'm going to play this Greater Auramancy and give the other Greater Auramancy protection. So now our stuff is going to stick in play for the foreseeable future. Now we're going to deal 6 damage instead of 4, hopefully. You're going to react and kill one of our guys? No. Okay, well we have lethal damage next turn. The Solemnity Saga plan is coming up pretty good here. Dress Down is a card that our opponent can play. The Tamiyo on the backside is annoying, but it's not going to be enough to stop our big constructs. -1ing them isn't really the way forward for our opponent. Maybe they'll make a miscalculation with Orcish Bowmasters at some point, expecting it to give them 2 blockers instead of 1. Okay, so they're just firing bindings to try and kill our constructs, because that's the only thing they can target now. Okay, so we're probably just attacking Tamiyo, as sad as that is. When you play against Tamiyo, the entire game is about Tamiyo. Unless you're one of the decks that really, really goes underneath Tamiyo's. Serra Sanctum, that is a banger, isn't it? Okay. So if we play the Solemnity, do you care? I hope you care. Play this Serra's Sanctum out. Tap it for a bajillion. Can I have some nice cards, please? Probably not. Force of Will and they draw a card. Sure. I'll activate my Urza Saga with the mana floating I have. And then we'll attempt to kill Tamiyo. Plow. I will put 1 damage on Tamiyo. Oh, they are playing Wrath of the Skies in their up the Beanstalk deck. Okay. Which conveniently doesn't hit Tamiyo. I think this game would have been a perfectly normal and interesting game if Tamiyo was just like another good but not busted card, like an Uro or something like they used to play. This would have been a really interesting game. But as it is, our opponents just had half of their deck now. It's just a bit much for us. Okay, so we're going to lose all of this and our Urza Saga because it is an enchantment. Wait, what? They just paid... Okay, they didn't want to lose their Beanstalk. Okay, I thought we were going to lose all of this. That's something at least. Is it something good? Probably not, but it's something. Alright, deck. Do we get to win before Tamiyo pops? Can we mill our opponent out if they pop their Tamiyo? Quantum Riddler. Just going to draw some more cards. I don't think our opponent pops a Tamiyo, you know. They've already got a full grip of cards. They don't necessarily need to draw half their library here. Wrath of the Skies is basically the only sweeper for enchantments that sees play in Legacy, really. I have seen a one-of Pernicious Deed in a bug deck, but that's about it. And another Tamiyo so they can get the front and the backside going. And we've drawn another Plains. Is that good? Is that good here, team? I don't think it is. Yep, we'll take a hit. Sure, you can go to 13 cards in your library and flip your other Tamiyo. That's a lot of cards. And there's only 13 cards left in your library, and Rest in Peace means you can't recycle your library with an Endurance. So maybe this game drags out long enough. They certainly have a clock in play that they can defend that will win before they deck. But if they have up the Beanstalk drawing them cards, that halves the amount of turns, potentially. Alright, we're playing another Quantum Riddler. So we go to 12 cards in library, then they go to 11 cards in library. We just need, like, one of the milling spells that we don't have in our deck, obviously. Hedge Maze, are you going to Surveil Away, are they? They did Surveil Away. That's... What are they looking for? You've got 20 cards in hand, opponent. Why are you risking decking here? On thin ice. I don't think this is going to resolve. But if they counter it, then they might draw some more cards, which is how we win this game. They didn't counter it in a way that made them draw an extra card. That makes me a little bit sad. Friends got half as much time on their clock as us, but I think they have enough time to win the game. This is just a 3-turn, turn your guys sideways, and the game is over. Now, we could find Phyrexian Unlife. Are we going to resolve Phyrexian Unlife? Probably not. Now they're casting cantrips. Why are they doing that? Their hand must be really, really bad for that to be a sensible thing to do. Solemnity. Let me have it. I've already got 2. You probably don't need to counter this, but if they make the mistake to counter this and draw more cards, I can live with that one. Maybe that gets us closer to winning this game via decking. Okay, we need Phyrexian Unlife to be in play. We need to actually resolve a spell. Okay. That kind of works. If our opponent Swords to Plowshares this, instead of just attacking around it, maybe that gives us a chance for our opponent to make a mistake and let us win the game. I suspect they just attack with both guys and win the game. Or they can Leyline Binding. I'm going to draw a card here. I really think the way they play this game is a little bit risky, but we are dead here. Yeah, again, this is not a matchup that I want to play against. Wrath of the Skies is horrible for us. Just control decks in general aren't going to be fun, but they are incredibly low in the meta. But whenever I play a deck that's bad against control decks, I inadvertently pair into nothing but control decks. Alright, 4 rounds down. We do have a win on the board, and we had one game that was close, but we couldn't quite get it through. I think that was the Stoneforge game. So let's see if we can just get a nice 2-3 to finish off the day with this one. It's a bit spicy, of course. I think a 2-3 would be a good record for it. Can't keep this one. Let's find one with some mana sources. Alright. I'm down to clown with this one. We keep this, we put back a Plains. Everything is right in the world, hopefully. So we can play the Plains on 1, and then we can try and on thin ice a creature around a daze with our Urza Saga starting to tick up. A Cloud Post. We're doing this again, are we? Okay, let's just crank some boys. Let's get some friends to beat down with. Are we going to be the blue Cloud Post? I suspect so. You didn't see a lot of green Cloud Post. So you're telling me you've got a lot of mana, opponent. I could just play the Solemnity because it shuts off of any attempt our opponent has to make One Ring stuff happen, which is the scariest thing they have in their deck. So I am going to go for it here. It resolved. The One Ring is no longer effective. Our opponent F6 through our turn, so it feels to me like they're either not the blue version or they have no counter spells. If you're the blue version, you probably just don't want F6 anyway, because people are going to be playing around your counter spells. Yavimaya. Okay, so we are on the green version. Ring doesn't work. We have answers for creatures. We got threats. Rune Halo is not going to matter when they just have an Emrakul because it attacks and we have all of our opponents annihilated. And that's not going to be very fun. 4 mana. Icetel Explorer. Love this guy. Big fan of this card. Okay, I think we're just... Are we just making friends? I think we're just going to start making friends. Because we can't afford our opponent to just get all the time in the world to make land drops and just go over the top of us. So we make a construct every turn. We incrementally increase the value of all the power in play. Ancient Stirrings. Absolute banger of a card. Love it. Planar Nexus. Not a big fan of that card though. Here is the Planar Nexus because they get to play additional lands. This is going to make all their Cloud Post tap for 1 billion mana. They also can play Wastelands from the graveyard soon. So we're not going to get many constructs here. Oh, they've got another Icetel Explorer, so now they get to play the Wasteland and take out our Urza Saga. I would describe this as going horribly wrong for us. However, I don't mind because what our opponent's doing is cool. I'm not sure how easy these green pips are going to be in their Cloud Post deck. Maybe they have to run like a full 4 Yavimaya in there. We'll get our free little creature. I say free. We did pay a reasonable amount for it. So they're going to have things like Besaju in their deck as well, I suspect. So relying on any of these to stick around might be difficult. Trinisphere. Yeah, you're doing some wild stuff over there, opponent. And it's going to absolutely ruin me. Didn't even attack. Didn't feel like it. So on the one hand, sweet, we can make a 20/20. On the other hand, oh no, they have a Caracas. We don't get to cast any spells. I don't want them to just tap their Caracas and that be enough. Alright, I think we're going to lose. Our opponent's done enough to get into their late game now. These Icetel Explorers have ramped out the game hugely and managed to undo the one thing we had going for us. And Trinisphere is doing some work too. At least we're going to get to see a lot of our opponent's deck because they're milling a lot. Presagio, Spirit Guide, that's probably going to be part of getting their green sources going. I hope they're running the full 4 Icetel Explorer. One of my favourite cards of the last year for sure, the Icetel Explorer. It's not quite as cool as Umid Hatchery, but it's up there. If we can draw our Pithing Needle and a land to cast it, we could Pithing Needle the Caracas and get in with a 20/20. They're going to have Glimmer Posts as well. This is so cool for them because they have 2 Icetel Explorers, so they're milling 2 cards. If they find another land, they play it, mill 2 cards. It's just like a super life from the loam. Okay, I think we can concede to the Ugin. I don't think we need to play this one out anymore. Alright, again, we're playing against a big mana deck, which is, again, not what we want to be playing against. It's just the nature of how this game goes sometimes. I guess the Ossification looks okay here. Rest in Peace has some text for sure. Spark Rupture. So these are the things I'm interested in. I'm not big into the Ghost Vacuum. I think the Rest in Peace does similar things, but better for us most of the time. I like our boots to go fast. Do we think there's going to be any targets for Seam Rip? Just Disruption Flute. Disruptive Flute, I don't think we need to worry about that. So they can go. I don't really think Ruined Halo is where we want to be either. And we still need one more cut. Oh, we've got these Ghostly Prisons they can get out. I would rather have a Seam Rip than a Ghostly Prison. Yeah, I definitely think we can build our deck better than what we have. And that's okay. I play something in this mono-white depth space maybe once a year. So the builds are never going to be fully fine-tuned, but we learn a little bit slowly. And then the meta changes entirely, I guess. Lavaspur Boots and our combo that's not really that good in this matchup. Let's mulligan. Pressure. I like Pressure. Let's keep this. Get rid of the Phyrexian Unlife. And just crank out some friends with the Urza Saga. March of the Canonized has not really been doing a lot for us today. It's a Forest and an Ancient Stirrings. Cool card. So the effect's really powerful, but you have to do some pretty funky deck building to find the colourless cards off of it. You can't just rely on finding a land, you need to do a little bit more. I think that's cool. That is the One Ring. That is a pretty good card. We can get a Pithing Needle in a few turns. It's a case of how quickly does our opponent ramp to it. Knowing that our United Battlefront will resolve is definitely a step up from the last couple of rounds though. That card can do some serious work. I don't know why it's got a whole bunch of creatures on it when it's not about creatures. It specifically says non-creature permanents. Right. Seems like a weird name and art combo really for what the mechanical card does. Anyway, I digress. Ancient Stirrings from our opponent. We're going to find a land that taps for multiple manas, I suspect. There is a Cloud Post. I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the card they played this turn. They can follow up with a Ancient Stirrings next turn and just jam the One Ring on us. They get one draw before we Pithing Needle it. Serra's Sanctum. Does that change anything? No. We'll make some friends. I guess we could have played the Sanctum because it makes our mana slightly better next turn. But we know they have Wasteland, although if they Wasteland, they're probably hitting this Saga anyway. Tabernacle. Oh, I see, opponent. Is that what we're doing? That seems a little bit on the rude side, doesn't it? I make a guy, it dies. I don't think we're just going to make a guy. We're just going to ignore the Tabernacle, I think. Just tap for this. Let it go. Go and get, I think it's Expedition map here. Let's get marching. We could have got the Pithing Needle for the One Ring, but I'm expecting to try and find Solemnity here. Maybe expecting is too strong a word. We did find the Solemnity and the Unlife if we want that. I don't think we want the Unlife. Do we want the Rest in Peace is the question. We're definitely getting the Solemnity. Do I want the Auramancy to protect our stuff? I think I probably prefer that to the Rest in Peace right now. But if they play the Ice Till guy, I guess we just remove it, is the plan for that. Alright. And then we can try and work towards Dark Depths combo. No One Ring shenanigans for you, opponent. I think if they had the ability to One Ring last time, they would have done as well. Because they could One Ring, make us commit a bunch of mana, and then drop the Tabernacle. And sort of freeze us out. Okay, so now the Tabernacle taps for mana. So the One Ring is available. I think Besage is legendary creature, not legendary permanent. So they can't get a 1 mana Besage off here. So they'd have to spend 2 mana on a Besage. I guess Besage in the Greater Auramancy first doesn't make a lot of sense either. So I guess that whole line is just not going to be worth it to our opponent. Which means hopefully they were all in on this, the One Ring doing stuff. They could have the Ice Explorer, but then we get to untap and just Oblivion Ring it before it does anything. So you probably want to hold on to that until it's ready to go. So Sanctum can produce a lot of mana for us as well. We might just go and get the Marit Lage to play next turn and just say, like, can you beat this? Do you have it? It depends what our opponent plays. If they go for the Ice Explorer, then we're probably not doing that. But we'll see. Our opponent has unfortunately lost connection, but hopefully they come back and we can get more of a game out of this. Alright, they're back. Excellent. They only went away for a very short space of time. Brilliant. I don't want to win games via people just disconnecting. So happy that we get to play out more of this game. I think it's quite interestingly poised. Another important thing to know here, our opponent doesn't have access to Kozilek's Command because they don't have 2 colourless. Force of Vigour. Bit rude. I guess we're not going to go and get our Marit Lage. Seam Rip doesn't really do anything here. Are we just going to put a little bit of power into play? I think I'm just going to put a little bit of power into play because we do need to pressure our opponent. Okay, we've got a couple of creatures in play. Elvish Spirit Guide. Crop rotation away their things. This is probably just going to be for another Cloud Post. It is. The big mana is mannering. Maybe they don't know how the One Ring and Solemnity works, and we get a little bit of a cheese on that one. Okay, so they're buying themselves time, but this isn't going to draw them cards. They're tapping it for nothing. There is an Eye of Ugin. That could be a little bit scary for us. Right, we're just going to pay for our little guys. They didn't get to attack this turn. Do I want to just get rid of this One Ring, even though it doesn't do anything, or do I want to just play another Solemnity? I think we're going to go for the Solemnity route here. Just play another one of these out. It does become frustrating if they get hold of another Force of Vigour. But the same thing is true with Oblivion Ring. Except Oblivion Ring can answer more things. And I think getting more stuff in place while Serra Sanctum is better is a nice place to be. Oh, don't cast an Ugin. No, just 6 mana. 7 mana. We do have an Oblivion Ring which does kill Ugin, but still, I'm not a big lover of this card. It is real bad news for us. I guess we could play our own Ugins, couldn't we? But we don't have enough colourless spells. But do you need enough colourless spells? It just does its own thing. Maybe that's just a different deck. Oh, okay, it's a Kozilek's Command. They're just going to look at the top 7, choose the best cards to put where they want, draw a card and make 7 guys that make mana. That's all they're doing, which is still obviously very good. And then it might also lead into an Ugin anyway. Now, the Tabernacle is going to deal with these spawns, so I don't know how good they are. If they're immediately casting something else now, which I suspect our opponent would like to do, then they're going to look pretty good. They kept 2 on the top, but they're not doing anything. Okay. I guess we pay because we can play most of the spells that we draw because of the Sanctum. March of the Canonized. It technically does stuff, doesn't it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pretty close to having this do the right amount. I guess we can play a Seam Rip here because it's free, effectively. And then we can March of the Canonized, get some more guys, but then also start popping out a bunch of demons. Yeah, I can live with that. Seam Rip. Lose one of your rubbish guys. Tap these. Let's get some demons down. So we now have Devotion of 7. So we can pay for all of our guys, make 8 power of demons. We've got something resembling a reasonable plan. If our opponent just gets enough mana and starts using Eye of Ugin, then we just die. That's basically what that card says. That Force of Vigour though. That's the one that got me. Okay, they're paying for the spawns. This might just be like treading water with their life total rather than anything else. They might just have nothing in hand and be like, okay, let's just have some guys that can block you for a few turns. The One Ring, that's protection. Doesn't draw you cards though. These on the bottom. And all of these. How many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will tap my Serra Sanctum. I will pay for them all. Then we get a big boy and another big boy. We draw for turn. It'll be something great and wonderful. A Snow-Covered Plains. Sure. Attack with 3. I don't think they're going to block here because they have the One Ring protection. But maybe our opponent forgot about it and makes a mistake. That's why we're attacking there. No, you got some spells there, opponent. Oh, they just shoot him with the Eye of Ugin. Oh, I don't know that very much. Is this going to be Ulamog? We can answer an Ulamog. This can also answer a Emrakul. So there is that. They could just blow up both of our Solemnities and start using their One Ring. But then we have a lot of damage potential. Alright. Their Cloud Post tap for approximately 1 billion mana. 13 mana. Oh, did you just have an Emrakul in hand? Well, we can lose 6 permanents, as weird as that is. One of the issues is the Ulamog is going to blow up our Oblivion Ring. That is one I'm not a fan of. Please forget to pay for your Tabernacle when you're Emrakul. Oh, they remembered. Our 1 out. So now they get to play the Ulamog. If they Ulamog now, that's actually pretty good for us. I guess they attack first and make us sacrifice a bunch of stuff. Blowing up both of our Solemnities so that the One ring can now function, and we also can't get a 20/20 very easily. Okay. Trench post. This is the milling one. Oh, it is the milling one. Cool, you don't see this very often. Right, we're going to get attacked for a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This doesn't have this does have Annihilator, right? No, this doesn't have Annihilator. It just mills us for 20. Are we just going to get milled out next turn? That'd be cool. We may be losing here, but we're seeing some cool stuff on the other side, like the nice little Ice-Tilt Explorer just going popping off and doing their big things. Possibly a Trench Post win this game. Another copy of the One Ring. Is that really worth playing there? I don't think that is. I think you hold it, get more cards out of the one you already got, and then use this to reset. Like, you're paying 4 mana to cantrip then. Is that really worth it? Ancient Stirrings. Let's see what they find. Another Locust, so they can get their Trench Post going big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're going to be able to mill us for 6 next turn. That's pretty cool. Dark Depths. Alright, this does answer Emrakul, which is nice. I can play Dark Depths. If I play Dark Depths, we can draw into either our 1 of Expedition map or our 1 of Thespian stage. If we hold it, we can draw into United Battlefront, or we can draw into Solemnity. So I think we're better off holding it. All right, we're going to lose... Is it 10 or 20 cards at mills? I can't remember. 20. Whew. That's many cards. And then we're going to get Trench posted for another 6, which is going to be enough to make this a 2-turn clock off the Unimog. But we have answers for Unimog. We're not bad at dealing with these big Eldrazi. And if we've dealt with both of the big Eldrazi, we're going to be okay until they force a Vigor us. Oh, that's poor Serra's Sanctum. Snapping that off right away. Alright. Get milled. Alright, big turn deck. Oh, we're going to get killed by Trench Post. We'll at least let our opponent kill us with Trench Post so they can have the screenshot. Don't mill us now. Mill us next turn, and then you get the little screenshot here. Alright, they don't even want to be doing that. They're just going to Ivoogan us, aren't they? Ah, the Force of Vigor getting back the Emrakul. That's not cool. You should have killed us with a Trench Post. We are very dead here, so let's just scoot this one up. Alright, we finished with a 1-4 record, but what is more festive and giving than giving all of our opponents some lovely wins today? So, not all of them, obviously. We did manage to win the tempo round. I think if we play against more tempo decks, if we play against, like, Ocelot Pride decks, if we play against the Cradle Control decks, I think we beat all of those with our deck. But we're just never beating big mana, which we played against twice. We're never beating Control, which we kind of played against 1.5 times because the Stoneforge list is kind of mid-range, kind of Control. It's in that sort of rough space. So we had 4 matchups we really didn't want to face. And I think if we had like a more even spread of the decks that are popular right now, I think we would have done better. But, c'est la vie. In terms of the actual list, I have a few things I'd like to change with this list. I don't really think we need Runed Halo, March of the Canonized, or Ghostly Prison in the main deck. I think I just want some like Ossifications, just some like good, useful, interactive spells that can hit Planeswalkers and stuff. And then that gives us a little bit more room to fiddle with. I did have a build that was running Spirited Companion, which I will pull up for you. This is Spirited Companion. It's a 2-mana 1/1 that draws a card when it enters, but it's an enchantment creature. Not sure how it's an enchantment dog, but it is. So this powers up our Serra Sanctum stuff. It fills the curve nicely for us and just gives us something that can not necessarily apply pressure, but can do something on the board. It can soak up a big hit to give us another turn. It can start pecking down a little bit. So that's another option. There's also things like some of the Saga cards, but the Saga cards become quite awkward when you have Solemnity. That's why I'm not playing like Birth of Meletis, which gets you a Plains out your deck, makes you a 0/4 wall, and gains you 2 life. There's also the one I like, Restoration of Aganjo, which is a 3-mana 1, which gets you... I think it gets you a Plains... Let's just look it up. So this one. So 3 mana gets you a Plains card, so it draws you a card. And then number 2, you can discard a card if you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So let's say your Rest in Peace got countered or whatever on turn 2, or your On Thin Ice or whatever. You can just get it back, so that's quite nice. And then the final one is it just flips and becomes a 3/4 that creates colorless tokens when it attacks or blocks. Now the problem with this is it plays really poorly with Solemnity. Now this is only 4 cards on our deck, and we're not trying to lean super hard into it. Sometimes Urza's Saga doesn't play well into Solemnity, although today we did assemble the combo a fair bit. So maybe we could get away with this sort of thing. There's probably some other enchantments I just don't know about. They print so many sets these days. No doubt I've missed some cool commander stuff that would actually be really good in here and help the deck kind of do its job. But the configuration we have right now, it's going to beat most aggro decks, I would say. Like, I think Eldrazi we're going to beat very often. I think Energy and Cradle Control we're going to beat, and we're going to beat Tempo most of the time, I would say. But like I said, we're going to have horrible time into Control. We're going to have a bad time into some combo decks. We're going to have a really bad time into like the big mana decks, Control decks. You know, there's a bunch of things that are bad for us and a bunch of things that I think are actually quite good. Now, you could leave it like this and just try and dodge matchups, or we could try and fix it and try and add in some extra stuff. But I'd need to have another look to see if there's some other stuff that we can do to go with, you know, the whole trying to get enchantments. Maybe there's something that can be good. I have played builds that ran the court card. So there's a court that produces 1/1s, but if you've got the monarch, which it gives you when it comes into play, you get angels, 4/4 angels. And there's another one that returns cards from your graveyard to your hand, but if you've got the monarch, they just come straight into place as like Sun Titan activations. So that's another option. We could just play stuff like lower on the curve, but then have some big X spells. So instead of March of the Canonized, we could have something better for our Serra Sanctum to use. There's a bunch of options we have available, but I only look at this deck once a year, so it's not exactly the top of my to-do list, but I thought we'd put it today to have a nice festive DEPTHSMAS. And the first round was great, so there is that. Unfortunately, we did come across a bunch of awkward matchups. I think this deck, if you just get into the right matchups, could 5-0 a league, like genuinely. If you're just playing into the aggro decks, especially the non-blue aggro decks, I think you just have a really good time. Like the decks that can't play Wrath of the Skies as well, or so like the Energy sort of Ocelot Pride decks, they're not going to be able to really answer all your stuff, and you're just going to roll them over repeatedly. And I think you do a very similar thing to the Cradle Control decks most of the time, because you can protect against a lot of their stuff, and you just have to get through some number of Force of Vigors and Presagis, but then we're going to have a bunch of removal, we can stall the board a little bit, that sort of jam. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one and hope you're having a lovely Christmas. If you've got any thoughts about this deck and some enchantments I've missed that would improve, please let me know. I'll save it in the bank for next year and we can try and improve this then. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and make sure you become a YouTube member. It helps me out. It only costs you $1. I have mine cheap. Most people charge $5 to $10 for their early access. I only charge $1. The idea is that more people will do it, and that's just better. I'd rather take $1 from lots of people and that rather than having like $5 or $10 from fewer people. Just spreading it around a little bit. Alright, so if you want to do that and watch some videos ahead of time, that'd be lovely. But thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.